This is Pass the Rock.
Could one of y'all pass the gosh darn rock? Hey, yo, I'm trying, I ain't lying, and hosting this will be Brian.
Yeah.
Posting like Kobe Bryant,
Yeah.
flying to see the pilot.
Yeah.
Hit the hezzy, we got Jesse, opinions get kinda messy. A fan of out of lefties, from football to racing jackies. He go silly when he go deep, sheesh, is Zach Zeman. Teaming up with Jack, we stack the whole team, man. Pass the rock, don't stop the shot clock. Smack the slap shot, come on, now let's talk. Pass the, yo, partner, pass the rock, for real.
Boys, it's week 3. In one word or less, is your season still alive?
No,
We here.
no, no. My
I'll quote Coach Prime.
my fantasy season has been atrocious. I'm 1-1 in our league, the staff league. I'm 0-2 in my money league. Thankfully, my friend, I have a league with some friends. I'm 2-0 there. But that league doesn't matter because I knew from the draft I was going to wipe everyone. So I'm having a miserable time over here in fantasy football. And yet you guys still invite me on the show to give people fantasy advice. I don't know why you guys are letting me do this.
0-2 and already out in Survivor.
Already out of Survivor too.
Maybe you need to get a new job.
I have been
job.
just completely off.
Whoa!
Oh!
Out
What's
of
up, boys?
nowhere.
Perfect timing.
All right. That's a
We actually
surprise.
just
I
started,
like-
so you're right on time.
Sweet. We'll keep going. Don't let me stop it.
All right. Well, Brian, in two words or less, is your fantasy season over?
No.
Thank you for using the second word.
Nice.
All right.
Double no.
Jack, Jack, is all hope lost? Is all out the window already?
I'll quote Coach Prime. We here.
All right.
We
Zach
here.
might
My
need to.
It's
I'm feeling
over.
good.
It's
Zach,
over.
don't quit your day job, Zach.
Zach didn't start the right. He started an injured player last week. It's his
I
own
did.
fault.
I did. No, that was mind games.
All right,
But you
Brian.
just said
That's
you're
not
done. So-
Mind games. All mind games I'm playing. Maybe I am done. Maybe I'm not done. It's all mind games.
All right, Brian, I'll start you off with a question about Thursday Night Football. We got Giants-Niners on Thursday Night Football. Niners favored by 10.5 points over a playoff team from last year. Is this the most ridiculous spread that you've seen so far this season?
I actually don't think it's that ridiculous. I mean, 10.5 against a probably Saquon-less Giants team, although the Giants are like making us feel like he might play, against 49ers defense who didn't necessarily shut the Rams out last week, but I don't think Danny Dimes has that comeback last week without Saquon. They can't seem to get Darren Waller the ball. I think I like 49ers minus 10.5 in this one.
Wow, a double-digit spread on primetime. It's rare for that to cash. All right,
Yeah.
Zach, are you starting a single New York Giant in fantasy?
Absolutely not. The only one I would even consider is likely going to be out, despite the Giants' best attempts to gaslight us into thinking he's going to play at some point in this game. I think Saquon's going to be highly doubtful for this upcoming game. I wouldn't touch a single member of the Giants, whether it's Danny Dimes, any of their receivers, Matt Breida, or their defense. There's no reason to touch the Giants this week. Avoid them at all costs as much as you can.
Would you, really quickly, question back to the host, would you bench Saquon if you had him on your team and he plays?
Yeah. Actually,
No,
No.
you don't.
there's no way he
Saquon.
plays
He's
on.
not
He's
bench.
supposed to miss 3 to 4 weeks. There's no way he plays 3 to 4 days after the injury happens.
If he's active, I'm not playing him. It's just too disgusting Thursday night
If
against
your
the
RB2 is
49ers.
Kareem Hunt, you might have to play him. But
Yeah, I don't know. To me, Saquon is one of those players that's like unbenchable. If he's playing, you play him.
yeah, and that's how you lose fantasy championships when you're still starting Jamar Chase over Puka Nacua with full confidence, and that's just what happens. All right, Jack, question for you: Giants over under 16.5 points tonight.
Is it crazy that I want to take the under? Like, I think the Niners could win this game like literally 40-10. Like this could be a repeat of what the Cowboys did to the Giants. Like we've seen the Giants struggle against an elite defense already this year. They're about to go play another one, and I would say if San Fran's offense is better than Dallas's, that like I wouldn't say had a field day against them, but looked pretty good. And Arizona kind of tore apart their defense last week, which is kind of sad. So I don't know. I am all out on the Giants. I love them coming into the year. They've looked disgusting so far. And I don't need to talk about how much I love San Francisco. You guys already know. I'm going to take the under, and I think it's going to be a complete blowout.
All right, well there you go. Brian, you came a little late. What's the story of your weekend?
The story of my weekend was that my daughter, who's in PT school, was able to access NFL Sunday Ticket at a third of the regular price, being a student. And what an experience it is. Now, I've had NFL Sunday Ticket in the past, but DirecTV always did a terrible job with not giving you a good 4-box or whatever. And YouTube TV has nailed it. And so we had a great time. The Saints weren't playing till Monday, so we rolled with a little red zone at the 1 o'clock games. And at 4 o'clock, we put all 4 games up, and vegetative state, I'll tell you.
All right, well, let's get right into our fantasy show for today. So, just kick things off. Mentor bench, who are you starting? T. Higgins versus the Rams, DK Metcalf versus Carolina, or Deebo Samuel versus the Giants? Jack.
I am going to go with DK Metcalf versus Carolina. I think T. Higgins, he is somewhat inconsistent as a player. He sort of always has been. He has these humongous boom weeks, and then you start him again the next week, and he gets you like 10. And you're like, well, that's not horrible, but it's kind of underwhelming. It kind of feels like that's the week we're headed for with him, especially if Joe Burrow isn't playing. Then there's no way I'm going with T. Higgins. And Deebo is also just the way the 49ers work is they just sort of rotate who's good. Brandon Ayuk was good in week 1. Deebo had his week last week. That means it's not going to happen again this week. It might be Kittle. It might be McCaffrey. It might be Ayuk. I don't know, but it's not going to be the same guy 2 weeks in a row. So I'm going to go with DK in a pretty decent matchup against Carolina.
All right. Zach, any different thoughts?
Yeah, I'm riding with Deebo Samuel here. I mean, the Giants have looked absolutely lethargic to start the season. I see no reason to not pick any receiver going up against them. Panthers have a few interesting players on defense that could prevent guys like DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and JSN from getting the touches they might be expected to get. And I'm not trusting any of the Bengals until Joe Burrow is healthy and ready to go, and then actually proves that he's back with a solid performance in a week. Until all that is proven to me, I'm going with Deebo Samuel out of these 3.
Brian?
Yeah, so Ayuk is a game time decision. So if he's out, I mean, you're never going to, I don't think you're cutting Deebo or benching Deebo this early anyway, but of these 3 choices, I really like him. I disagree with Jack. I think more than one of those players can go off in a given week. McCaffrey pretty much does it every week, and it's just what receiver. But I like Deebo out of these 3. I agree Higgins too unreliable, and DK, I need to see it. I don't know. It's so hard to predict that Seattle wide receiver room.
All right, next one. We got some quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson at Baltimore, Geno Smith versus the Panthers, or Jared Goff versus the Falcons. Brian.
Give me Jared Goff. Fire up the Honolulu blue and silver against the Falcons. If Jordan Love doesn't fall into the ass of his right guard, the Green Bay Packers probably score an extra touchdown. So give me the Lions all day long. I want them all. I want Josh Reynolds. Everybody. I think Atlanta has been like surviving okay with this defense, but I think this week they really get it. So give me Jared Goff.
I don't know. I am not going to go Jared Goff because something that Brian actually mentioned on Monday was that he threw his first interception. I don't even know how many attempts last week, and the floodgates were going to open. Well, if there's anything to like about this Atlanta defense, it's this secondary. Jesse Bates, probably the best free safety in all of football. AJ Terrell is finally looking more like himself this season after a pretty bad year last year. I don't know that I trust Jared Goff against that secondary this week. I'm actually going to go with Geno Smith against Carolina. Anthony Richardson's a little banged up. I like AR a lot, but Baltimore is going to be a tough matchup no matter what. Andy's coming into the game. He's in concussion protocol right now. I think they expect him to clear it by Sunday, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But Geno against Carolina, I think, is a decent matchup. They have a good pass rush. I don't love Carolina's secondary. And with the weaponry that Seattle has, they should be able to get open against those guys. And I'm going to go with Geno.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to break the tie here. I feel like if it wasn't for his injury status, I'd probably rock with Anthony Richardson, but I'm concerned about how he's had 2 injuries back to back in the first 2 weeks. Plus, this is a tougher Baltimore defense, so I'm gonna go with Geno Smith out of all these quarterbacks. Like I did mention earlier that I'm not high on DK Metcalf because he's going to be sharing targets, and the Carolina defense is a little bit underrated. Doesn't mean that Geno won't be effective against them, though. I think Geno will perform pretty well against a Carolina team that's clearly not ready to compete. So I'm going to go with Geno Smith over Jared Goff, going against Jesse Bates and that Atlanta secondary.
All right, and Geno Smith had a very nice week last week versus the Lions. And I know it's the Lions' poorest defense, but he had more fantasy points than Patrick Mahomes, than Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, all those guys. So Geno Smith, he actually might still be on your waiver wire in a few leagues. So I would say if you're in QB hell, go get him. All right, running backs. Zach, coming to you first. Breece Hall versus the Patriots, Joe Mixon versus the Rams, Jahmyr Gibbs versus the Falcons.
Oh, this one's tough. And while I've always liked Joe Mixon in fantasy for whatever reason, I've always liked him in fantasy. I don't know why. I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs here. I like the matchup the most. I think, Rams, spearheaded by Aaron Donald, will definitely be able to get some stops on the Bengals rushing offense. Plus, the Bengals continue to be completely out of sync. If Joe Burrow's not playing, I would steer away from any Bengal on your fantasy roster. And then Breece Hall's going against a very stubborn New England defense. They're just great all around. So give me Jahmyr Gibbs. While Atlanta has a great secondary, their front 7 isn't anything super special. I think Gibbs will be able to put up the best performance out of these 3, so I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs.
All right.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. Oh, did you say Brian?
No, I said go for it.
Oh, okay. I'm also going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs and pray to God they actually give him the ball this week. Last week, Craig Reynolds was getting touches after David Montgomery went down, which is not ideal. But I'm hoping they come to their senses and Jahmyr Gibbs actually gets an RB1's workload this week. And again, against a squishy Atlanta run defense, he should have a pretty good week. That is reliant on them actually giving him the ball, though. So I'm crossing my fingers and going to bet on Gibbs' upside.
Yeah, it's Gibbs all the way. That Jets-Pats game has an over-under of 37.5. It's so low. Roll with the defenses in that game. Jahmyr Gibbs, it's time. Dan Campbell, it's time to just let it loose. Let's see what this is. Barry Sanders 2.0. Perfect team to do it against. Come on. Jahmyr Gibbs against Atlanta.
Of course, the Jahmyr Gibbs versus Bijan Robinson Super Bowl this week. Going to be a very exciting game to watch. Let's finish it off with one more wide receivers. Jack, you can go first this time. Terry McLaurin versus the Bills, Michael Thomas at Green Bay, or DJ Moore at the Chiefs?
This is gross.
I think it's Michael Thomas. I think it's Michael Thomas, which is like kind of weird because I am so not a Terry McLaurin guy in fantasy. He had a pretty good week last week, but he's just he feels like a guy that every time you use him, he just disappoints. I could say the same about DJ Moore, but also combined with the fact that his quarterback is Justin Fields, who can't throw a football, and they're going up against a good Kansas City defense. Don't love that. I'm also not in love with Michael Thomas, but I think that's the best option. I think that Green Bay has a talented defense, but I would assume that Jair Alexander will be on Chris Olave rather than MT, which will probably free him up a little bit. And I don't like the play caller for Green Bay's defense, Joe Barry. So hopefully he screws up as a busted coverage and MT gets a big touchdown and wins your week.
All right, Zach.
I don't like any of these matchups, honestly. I mean, you really had to pick these 3 out of all the fantasy matchups available for us to pick between. I agree with Jack with the Terry McLaurin thing. I've never been a Terry guy. He's always disappointed year in, year out. DJ Moore, quarterback can't throw. I'm just echoing Jack's words. I have to go with Michael Thomas. He has the best situation out of the 3 guys. Not much more to say there.
So the answer should be Terry McLaurin. They're probably going to be down. They're going to be chucking the ball. It's the Bills defense, which will give up passing yards. DJ Moore also should be down, right? But he has no quarterback on his team. So unless they make him the quarterback. That's tough. So you go to Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is going to get you 6 or 7 catches for 80 or 90 yards, no touchdown, just solid floor. And with these other two, you just got to trust that, I think. I'm not being a homer, but I think I'm going Michael Thomas. I've been burned by Terry and DJ way too much, and they're just going to disappoint me with 2 catches for 4 yards.
Yep.
I think I actually like Terry McLaurin on this one. Michael Thomas did get some volume, but Terry McLaurin just has, I think, to me, the biggest chance of just going up there and getting a touchdown like he did this past week versus the Broncos. So I know it is the Bills and it's tough. I think the Bears will get shut out this week. I honestly, I'm starting the Chiefs defense in all 4 of my leagues, and I think you guys should too. So Michael Thomas has been good so far, but he's going to get you the 9 or 10 points that he has the last 2 weeks and just kind of call it a day.
They're not available in my league. I can't pick them up. My bad.
They were my
You're
number
not
one.
starting him. You're not starting them in all your leagues because I have them in the staff league. So
No.
Well, you just ruined
I have
the
the Saints team.
mirage.
I definitely need to switch defenses.
And if it wasn't good enough that they get the Bears this week, the Chiefs get the Jets next week. So it's just a team that you should really be picking up.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's going to be money. All right. This is going to be an interesting segment. So are you starting Puka Nacua over Terry McLaurin?
Yes.
Yes.
Reluctantly, yes.
Right. And this is just for fantasy. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Are you starting Puka Nacua over Amari Cooper?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a maybe for me. I might say
my
no,
God.
just because of what's going on in Cleveland. They may have to start chucking the ball.
Amari Cooper was a
I'm
top
not
20
relying
guy
on Deshaun
last year.
Watson.
Yeah, I mean, no offense to Puka Nacua, he's had a great start, and obviously we have a couple more weeks without the all fantasy stud, but on his team. But I think I might go Amari on this one.
Well, the list is only getting harder, so we'll see, Brian. DeAndre Hopkins.
Absolutely yes.
Yes, I am.
I don't think Hopkins has been very impressive at all. I'm starting Puka.
Garrett Wilson. Given the quarterback sitch.
It's so tough. I love Garrett Wilson so much, but I'm sticking with Garrett Wilson. He's too explosive.
Given the situations that both teams are in, I think it's a no-brainer to start Puka over Garrett Wilson.
Wow.
Oh, no. Garrett Wilson, I'm going to take his 1 catch, 75 yards and a touchdown every single week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's too explosive. You can't put him on your bench.
All right. Volume doesn't lie, though. Michael Pittman.
Yeah, I mean, he's a volume doesn't lie guy right there. But I think I would go Puka.
I'm thinking, especially for this week with this listening, like this week with like who I'm starting this week. That's what I'm thinking of right now. And this is a no-brainer as well. I've never liked Michael Pittman too much in fantasy. This is easily Puka again.
Yeah, this is an
right.
easy one, Puka. I don't even own Michael Pittman, and or I don't roster him anywhere, and that there's a real reason why. His quarterback, and he's just kind of underwhelming. Give me Puka.
All right. Brandon Ayuk.
He is banged up right now, and with the inconsistency of who gets the ball in the Niners offense, I think I'll go Puka.
With the game time decision plus all the weapons, Brandon Ayuk is very boom or bust every single week. You have that upside of 30-plus points, but you have that downside of like less than 7. So I'm going to go with Puka for what he's shown us so far.
If Ayuk is healthy, y'all are insane. We're absolutely starting Ayuk.
But he might not be. All right. Let's get to the Bucks. Chris Godwin.
Yes, I'm taking Puka over Godwin.
I'm also taking Puka over Godwin.
Godwin, y'all are both insane.
All right. Mike Evans.
I'm going to lead Mike Evans. Mike Evans has been really good to start the season. I can't put that guy on my bench right now.
That one's pretty tough. I feel like they're both having pretty hot starts to the season, but I'm going to trust Stafford's arm a little bit more than Baker Mayfield's. I'm going to go with Puka.
The answer is Mike Evans unless he's playing Marshawn Lattimore because he will be ejected from that game.
Mike Evans is currently the wide receiver 2 in fantasy,
Yes.
by the way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
he's
know
going to
that
have 2,000 yards.
I know that a lot of that came on. He had like a 75-yard catch and run last week, but still, regardless, he's looked good. Tyler Lockett.
This is easily Puka.
Yeah, Tyler Lockett, a boomer bust fantasy player year in, year out. You're always hoping for those 25 points, but you usually get those 7 points. So I'm going to go with Puka for now.
Tyler Lockett. Come on, guys. Yes, he's boomer bust. He has been, but I actually liked what Geno Smith did with him last week and really brought him back into this offense. If anybody's going to suffer in that offense, it's Jackson Smith and Jigba. So, yeah, I'm going to take Tyler Lockett.
All right, we got quite a few more names to get through. T. Higgins.
As we'll get to later, this is something that I'm grappling with in real life right now, but I am going to lean Puka at this moment in time.
Until I see a good, healthy, consistent week from Joe Burrow, throwing to all of his targets and all of them being valuable in fantasy, this is going to be Puka.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with that. T. Higgins, I have him. A, I don't have any Puka because I didn't believe in it. But B, I'm going to take him over T. Higgins because it's just been a little rough. And it doesn't look like it's getting better for the Bengals.
It's definitely not getting better. All right, where am I? Mike Williams.
I think it's Puka again. Mike Williams is kind of inconsistent in fantasy.
I'm right there with you, Jack. It's Puka again.
Youth and ignorance, sometimes the same thing. No, it's Mike Williams. This offense, no matter how bad Justin Herbert's record
Keenan
is.
Allen's the number one option. What do you mean?
Yes, and
Keenan
I
Allen.
will take him as a number 2 option over Puka. Thank you.
It's fair. This is the epitome of week 3 of NFL fantasy.
Exactly.
We're saying,
Yep.
who's this undrafted rookie that no one's
Yep.
ever, or he's 5th round or whatever, who's suddenly better than Keenan Allen.
Oh,
So let's go Deebo Samuel.
Oh man. The slightest of edges to Deebo, but like so close.
Same thing that we talked about with Brandon Ayuk. There's always one, maybe 2 Niners players who go off every week in fantasy. It's not consistently one guy or the other. So I know it's early, but just if Brandon Ayuk is out, I'm picking Deebo. If Brandon Ayuk is out, I'm picking Deebo. But if Ayuk is healthy, I'm going Puka here.
Give me Deebo just for the rushing upside.
Remember the days when the Niners just had George Kittle and Deebo and they would both go off every game?
Yeah,
that was a
good
nice time.
times. Good times.
Those were the days.
All right, we're getting into the top 15-ish here. DK Metcalf.
Yeah. Oh man. Puka. Yeah, it's gonna be Puka. DK. He's always good for a solid like 13 to 15, but I feel like the explosive games don't happen very much with him. And if Puka's getting targeted 15 times a game, like his floor is insanely high, and his floor might be higher than DK's 13. So, give me Puka.
That's true. Even if Puka's volume over the next 2 weeks is reduced to 10 targets a week, that's still a higher floor than DK usually has. So give me Puka here.
Absolutely DK Metcalf.
They say 35 targets in 2 weeks does not lie.
That is insane. That is an insane amount
It
of
is
targets.
insane. It is
It's
insane.
again, literally 10 targets a week is still it's still an amazing number of targets to get for any wide receiver. If Puka gets 10 targets a week for the next 2 weeks until Cooper Kupp gets back, he has to be started.
Well, in week 1, he had 10 catches on 15 targets. In week 2, he had 15 catches on 20 targets. So week 3, he might have 20 catches on 30 targets. So
Does this make Cooper Kupp just a system guy? He just plays in this system. Like if he played anywhere else, he'd be terrible.
Are we
If
ready
it
to
made
have this
Puka
I
a
don't know.
star,
I don't know. If
Are we ready to have this
but-
conversation?
Well, no, like, do you remember what Cooper Kupp was before they started using him as this slot machine? Like, that is Cooper Kupp without this Ram system.
I can't remember. So you're right.
Guy.
All right. These are some testy ones. Jalen Waddle.
It's got to be Waddle. It has to be Waddle. Waddle's too talented.
Waddle hasn't had a great game yet this year, but I know that he's obviously the more talented receiver. He's probably the most explosive receiver we've mentioned on this list so far. I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle.
yeah, it's Waddle. You just want to be a part of that offense. And let's just be real. This Rams offense may not be hanging around like they have been so far all season. Go with Waddle.
They're ranked right next to each other on Fantasy Pros, and Puka Nacua had more targets in the first half last week than Jalen Waddle has this season. So it's pretty interesting. I love saying in this whole season when it's only 2 games in.
Yeah.
All right, Calvin Ridley.
It's Calvin Ridley. He's due for a bounce back this week. It was really rough last week, and they're playing the Texans. So, yeah, it's Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, same here. I really want to be on the Calvin Ridley train, even though I don't have him in any of my leagues. Calvin really just has more upside throughout the entire season, so give me Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, it's Ridley. Ridley looks ridiculous. He looks really good. He's got an AFC South schedule and an NFC South schedule.
Had a pretty rough week last week, and Calvin Ridley and Puka both have games over 25 this year, but Puka does not have a game under 10. So take that with what you will. Chris Olave.
Oh, boy. With Jair Alexander shadowing Olave, I'm going with Puka.
Brian, is Michael Thomas back?
He's back at 80% of Michael Thomas, yes.
Okay, then Puka all the way.
Wow.
See, I don't think Jair Alexander is going to shadow Olave. I think he is going to move around. I think on 3rd down and short, he's going to be on Michael Thomas because that's where Derek Carr has gone, for the first 2 weeks. It's absolutely Olave, not even a question.
Yeah, Chris Olave's had a great start to the year as well. He's seen a lot of volume. So Puka Nacua is sandwiched in between Olave and Jalen Waddle on the rankings, which basically means he's worth a 2nd or 3rd round pick now, which is just absolutely absurd. All right, we got a few other names left on this list. Here's a fun one: Devontae Adams.
It's difficult, but Tay is too good. You can't bench Tay.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It's Devontae Adams. You really can't bench him. I'm going to go with Devontae.
See, this is one where I just don't want to be part of the Raiders if I can avoid it. So I might go Puka here. Just because, look, Devontae had a great catch and run for a touchdown last week, but I don't think he's going to have a lot of space going forward, and Jimmy G is going to have a tough time hitting him. I didn't draft him at all. I don't feel great about him this year, so give me Puka.
I don't know. He's one of those guys that you just throw it up to him and let him make a play.
And they don't, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, but he doesn't even need to separate. He doesn't even need to be that far downfield. Just target him. Just throw him the ball.
Yeah. I remember the days where he was the clear-cut number 1 receiver in the league, and it seems like getting relegated to the Raiders just ruins that for you. All right, Keenan Allen.
Keenan's been on fire to start the year, so I can't put him on my bench right now.
I agree. Keenan Allen's had an incredible start to the season, something I don't think any of us really expected. Until he cools off, it's Keenan Allen.
Especially with Josh Kelly in the backfield for the Chargers, you gotta think Justin Herbert's gonna be slinging it this weekend against the Vikings. That game might end up in the 40s, and so Keenan Allen all day.
And it's gonna be a tie.
And it's gonna be a tie. You're
27 tie. 27.
All right, last one. This is kind of a joke, but it's a real problem for a lot of people. Are you starting Puka Nacua over Jamar Chase?
If Joe Burrow doesn't play this week, I think you have to legitimately consider it. If Joe Burrow is out. If Joe Burrow is playing, you can't bench him.
I'm not going to lie. I'm considering it even if Joe Burrow plays. He's clearly not at 100%. He hasn't been able to get any of his targets the ball enough to make them fantasy viable. I think this is a real conversation that you need to have. I think people should actually consider starting Puka over Jamar Chase because until Joe Burrow,
are you saying this with a straight face?
Until Joe Burrow, like I've been saying, until Joe Burrow actually has a solid, consistent week in fantasy football, I see no reason to touch the Bengals.
As a person who traded Jamar Chase last night, for a big package.
What'd you get?
So it was Anthony Richardson and Jamar Chase, and I got back Jalen Waddle, Ken Walker, and Brock Purdy in a 2-quarterback league.
Oh, good deal. Good deal.
So anyway, You are insane. You cannot talk about Puka Nacua over Jamar Chase. I don't
I am.
care what the situation is. I don't care if it's the backup quarterback. You're not benching Jamar if he's on your team, which is one reason I traded him, so I didn't have to make that decision any longer.
All right, well that ends that segment. Yeah,
Call me insane. I don't care. I
You're
can't
insane.
wait to. I can't wait to read the comments once Jamar Chase. Once it's not Joe Burrow throwing him the football, Jamar Chase is going to have like 7 points. But I'm going to be like, oh well, but maybe this guy isn't crazy after all.
He hasn't had 7 yet. I don't think
Exactly. Proving my point.
he is not.
All right, that ends that segment. So Jamar Chase, bench him if you have him. Let's go over. Just kidding. Let's go over to fantasy.
That has
point.
to make it in the video, by the way.
Yeah, it will. It will. All right, fantasy point over under Najee Harris 12.5 at the Raiders. Jack,
This is PPR, right?
PPR.
Yeah, I'm still going with the under. I'm going to take the under on Najee Harris every single week until he proves me otherwise, because Jaylen Warren just looks better than him. And I don't know when it's going to be, but he is going to take over the RB1 in Pittsburgh at some point in the coming weeks. I'm just not betting on Najee at all right now.
Najee Harris has to be one of the slowest running backs I've ever witnessed in my life. He looked like he just looked lethargic running down the field, open fields too. He'd be just humming along, just like a leisurely pace. It looked like. I'm going clearly with the under. I'm not high on Najee Harris whatsoever.
I have so much Jaylen Warren that I'm just waiting for the bench situation to happen. So Najee Harris way under. So here's a question for Jack really quickly. I know I'm interrupting. Would you do a waiver wire ad for Jerome Ford and drop Jaylen Warren?
No, because I need to see what the Jerome Ford Kareem Hunt balance is going to be before I invest in Jerome Ford. Like, I think there's a chance that by the end of the season, or at least in a few weeks, Jaylen Warren is getting the ball more than Jerome Ford is.
Yeah.
I really feel bad for anybody who spent their entire fab budget on Jerome Ford and then saw later this morning that the Browns signed Kareem Hunt to a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
That's why I don't play fab. All right. Did you actually answer the under, Brian?
Yeah, under for Najee.
All right. Jack, Josh Jacobs, 15.5 points versus the Steelers. Over under.
I think it's gonna be under because the Steelers' defense is really good. I think this game is like going to be really low scoring, as all Steelers games are. The Raiders' offense isn't that good. The Steelers' offense certainly isn't that good. And I just don't think there's going to be that many points scored in this game. So I'll take the under.
I feel like this is a really good line for Josh Jacobs where I could see it going either way, but I'm probably also going to lean the under here. I do like what I've seen out of Pittsburgh's defense so far. I like what TJ Watt's doing. I don't like that Raiders offensive line too much, so I'm going to go with the under here.
Did you guys see Jerome Ford, what he did to that Steelers defense in the second half last week?
But no, it was one play. It was one play.
Yeah, did you see that play?
It was insane.
Yeah.
But it was one play.
Well, he's half of Josh Jacobs. Give me the way over on this one. This is where Josh Jacobs says, I'm back. I had to get into football shape. I was looking a little thick, but I'm ready to roll.
I think Josh Jacobs had one of the most impressive stats last week of negative 0.2 yards per carry, and finished the game with less than 1 yard. For me, all the four of us here had more rushing yards than Josh Jacobs last week.
Oh,
let's go!
I actually think Josh Jacobs is possibly the best buy low candidate right now because it's tough right now, but there's a middle of the season stretch where they get the Bears, the Lions, the Giants, the Jets. It's going to open up a little bit for Josh Jacobs. All right, last one. Zach, you can go first. Jahmyr Gibbs, over under 14.5 points in his first start.
I'm feeling the over here. Like we mentioned earlier, Atlanta, great secondary, not a great front seven to be working with. I think Gibbs will be able to run the ball all over Atlanta's defense and hopefully prove that he has RB1 upside. So I'm going to go with the over.
Yeah, I think he could have 6 catches. So that starts, that gets him almost halfway there already. So give me the over. I just think that game is going to be high scoring.
Yep. I am going to agree with you guys. I'll take the over as well and pray to God they actually give him the football. And if that's the case, this is going to be his breakout game.
All right. I think it's going to be the over as well. I think that this is finally the chance that he gets more than 10 touches in a game versus the Falcons. This should be, in my opinion, a high scoring game. Bijan versus Gibbs. It's the pinnacle of every 15-year-old playing fantasy. So let's get into our fantasy dilemma of the week. Zach, you can go first.
All right. So looking at my flex position, we have Jerome Ford against Tennessee, Brian Robinson against Buffalo, Tyler Lockett against Carolina, and I feel like this is going to happen every week unless I trade him. DJ Moore against Kansas City.
Those are 4 of the most disgusting defensive matchups for all of those players that you could have listed.
It's terrible. It's awful.
I think I know my pick. I'm gonna say Brian Robinson. He's looked really good this year. He looks faster than I ever thought he could have been. And he's still that big bruising guy as well. And Buffalo's defense, I don't know. I don't think they're quite as good this year as they've been in years past. So I think that matchup is not quite as horrible as it may look on paper. And Brian Robinson's looked really good so far this year. So I'll take him.
Yeah, I think you got to go Brian Robinson here just with the hopes that the Buffalo-Washington game can be high scoring and he's going to get his, especially through the passing game. Lockett, I like. Jerome Ford, I hate. DJ Moore, I hate this week. But I'm probably leaning Robinson.
To me, it depends if you're projected to win or lose. If you're projected kind of close, I would go Robinson. If you're already kind of down 20, I would say go with Lockett or DJ Moore for the upside.
I am projected. I have a 49% chance right now. It's 3-point difference. I'm projected 3 points lower than my opponent this week.
Then I would probably go Robinson, who's locked into at least 15 touches in that game, whereas DJ Moore could do some work if the Bears are behind the whole game, but this whole show is hated Justin Fields' arm. So
and another quick small one, just because we already talked about Lockett a little bit. Him or George Pickens as wide receiver 2. Pickens he's going to Vegas.
I don't know. I'm just not a big Tyler Lockett guy, so I'll say Pickens.
I think I would roll with Pickens there. I think that Vegas' defense is softer than Carolina.
I'm only feeling Pickens because Tyler Lockett last week he was on. This week he could be off, so we'll see.
Pickens. Who else is Pickett throwing to? Freiermuth had 1 catch for 2 yards.
To be fair, is Pickett throwing? So, will he actually throw the ball instead of just handing it off or toss it?
Well, we just said his running back's going to be under, so of course he's going to have to throw the ball.
All right.
Well, his last name just tells the defense what to do. So there you go.
Pickens it is.
How long have you been saving that one? That was good.
I just thought of it, honestly.
Puka and Pickens is my wide receiver 1 and 2 this week. That is
disgusting.
That is awful.
Disgusting, but it actually might not be that.
And I also lost Nick Chubb. I lost Nick Chubb on that team.
Condolences. But at least you got Jerome Ford. All right, my dilemma of the week for the flex spot: Zay Flowers, Michael Thomas, or Chris Godwin.
I'm going to go with the rookie. I'm going to go with Zay Flowers. I think he's got a good matchup against Indianapolis. That defense is not very good. The Ravens should be able to put up a lot of points, and I think Zay's looked really good so far this year.
I think Zay probably has the most upside if it's, if you're projected close, I would go with Zay because I think he has the most upside out of these guys. If you're not, I don't think you can really go wrong with any of the 3 if you're, not, if the matchup isn't quite there.
Mm-hmm.
But Zay definitely, I'd say, has the most upside, even though he probably has the lowest floor and the highest ceiling out of these guys. So if you want to take that risk, I would go with Flowers.
Yeah. I think Thomas and Godwin, to me, are kind of the same receiver of the more...
They're both solid.
They're both solid. They're both kind of the number 2 on the team currently, and they'll both go 5 catches for 50 yards at least, and that will just be it. Whereas I guess Zay Flowers has the upside there. My wide receivers 1 and 2 are Chase and Puka as of right now, so we'll see who gets the third spot.
It'll be really interesting. This Bucks offense the next 2 weeks have the Eagles and the Saints defenses just to see what they do with a little bit tougher.
So you got to bench Evans when they face
I would
Lattimore.
definitely lean away from Godwin, and it really should come down to Flowers or Thomas because I don't think the matchup for Godwin is great, assuming James Bradbury's back.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I'm leading Flowers, and I also have Mark Andrews, so I'm kind of all in on the Ravens. All right, Jack, what's your dilemma this week?
Yep. So, well, this is actually a staff league problem, but don't worry, I'm not playing any of the 3 of you this week. So you're
not playing anyone this week, by the way.
It's T. Higgins versus the Rams, Keenan Allen at the Vikings, or Puka Nacua at the Bengals. Pick 2 of those 3.
That's disgusting.
Oh man, I think this is pretty obvious though. It's Keenan Allen and Puka Nacua. I mean, again, until the Bengals show that they can run a competent offense, I think it's going to happen. Not this week, maybe in a week or 2 from now. Until we see that, I see no reason to start T. Higgins over Puka or Keenan Allen, who's been on fire to start the year. So I think this is pretty simple. I'm going Keenan and Puka.
That Cincinnati Rams game could be 35-31 or 10-7. I really don't know which way to lean on that. But I can't trust T. Higgins over the other 2 who have just been pretty solid to start. So as much as I want you to lose, Jack, I would go Keenan Allen and Puka Nacua.
Yeah, it's the same for me. Unless you just really want to watch the Super Bowl rematch and start T. Higgins and Puka and call it a day. But I don't think you can bench Keenan Allen versus Minnesota. I think that has to be locked in. And between Higgins and Puka, I mean, Puka's the number 1, and he's getting 15 to 20 targets a game. And yeah, if Joe Burrow doesn't play, this is a pretty easy choice.
Yep.
Brian, what you
got?
All
right, here's one for you. I need you to pick 1 running back and then 1 flex. So I have this is a league where I lost Saquon potentially. Madison versus the Chargers, Pacheco versus the Bears, Watson versus the Saints, Christian Watson if he plays, and Gabe Davis versus Buffalo. So I need
versus
1 running
Buffalo.
back and 1 other player.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, versus
Washington.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah, this one's pretty easy for me. It's Pacheco as your running back because he's playing the Bears. And I also don't like Madison really at all. I don't think he's that good.
I know.
So it's Pacheco versus the Bears. And if he's playing, it's Christian Watson because Christian Watson is by far the best player out of these guys. So he's got to get in there. And it's Pacheco versus the Bears.
God, I've been holding on to Watson for those first 2 weeks, desperately waiting for him to come back.
Starting him. You mean you've been starting him?
Yes, I started him, but I have him in multiple leagues. And I'm waiting for him to come back because I'm like,
You're starting multiple leagues.
Yeah. All right, I get it. I started an injured player. All right, it's mind games. All right, you guys don't understand my mind games here. I've been waiting for Christian Watson to come back, though. I think he has wide receiver 1 upside when he finally plays. So for the upside, I would say Watson. And then for the running back, it's Pacheco. That one's kind of a no-brainer. He's my RB2 this week as well.
Madison is such a sinking ship guy.
I think this is the week you got to fire him up.
I know. That's what I was thinking too, because he gets 90% of the running back touches. So
yeah, and last week he still managed to get 4 points.
He was playing a lot better defense last week than this week. No, trust me.
To be fair,
I fall in the vortex, the Alexander Madison vortex. I get it.
I don't know. I'm just so fed up with him right now.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, it's hard to start a guy after he gets 4 points in a soft matchup last week. It's
no, it wasn't soft, but
yeah, maybe it's not soft, but it's a matchup where he didn't need to fumble the ball many times, and he's locked into the main role every week. You got to start Madison. And I think flex-wise, I would go Christian Watson personally if he's back in his first game with the big play upside. But if it's a sure thing, I would go Pacheco.
Yep. Thanks.
Brian, you want to lead us through this next one? I got a train passing my house.
Nice. Perfect. All right. Boom and bust of the week. I'm assuming that okay, I see how you guys did this. All right. So I need a quarterback, running back, and wide receiver that you think is going to hit this week. Boom. All right. So let's start with you, Jack.
I'll take Jordan Love versus the Saints. I think he's looked really good to start this season, and I don't think the Saints defense has also looked better than I expected to start this season, but I still don't think that's a top of the top unit. I think Jordan Love should be able to keep playing at the high level that he has so far. So I'm going to roll with him. I'm going to roll with Javonte Williams against Miami. I really like this pick. I think he's due for a really good week this week. He's getting healthier by the week. He looks better. He's still the RB1 in Denver. And Miami's run defense to start this year has been really bad, as it typically tends to be with a Vic Fangio defense to just kind of ignore the run. So I think Javonte Williams is going to have a big week this week. And then I'm going to go with Zay Flowers against the Colts. I think, like I talked about in Jesse's Dilemma of the Week, I think Zay Flowers is due for a big week. It's an easy matchup. He's looked really good to start this year. And I just love what I've seen from him so far.
Yeah, the Javonte looked real fast against Washington. He looked like he was back, so that's interesting. Saints have only allowed one touchdown in the first two games, and that was in garbage time against the Panthers. So watch out for that. And if Marshawn Lattimore doesn't have to guard Christian Watson, that just opens up so much for that defense. Zach, over to you. Booms of the week.
All right, so I can't believe I'm saying this about a Pitt quarterback, but I'm going with Kenny Pickett against the Raiders. I'm going on the Pickett train right now. I think he's going to absolutely tear up that Vegas defense, and I think using weapons like George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth, he's got a real chance to have an impressive week. At running back, I'm going with Dameon Pierce against Jacksonville. Definitely a player that's due for a big week. He has yet to have one. We know what Dameon Pierce can do. We know he can be a consistent 14, 15-point guy. Looking for a big week from him. And then finally, against the Cleveland Browns, I'm going with DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver. He's the only guy that the Titans throw to pretty much. He's the only reliable option they have. I think he's due for a big week, and this is a Browns team I'm not super high on. I can see it happening this Sunday.
Yeah, the Dameon Pierce thing, if he doesn't get going early in the game, he almost goes away because they have to start chucking the ball.
He does, but I'm going to say there's going to be a week where he finally does.
Yeah. No, he's too talented not to. Agreed. Jesse, over to you. Booms of the week.
All right, I got three names for you. Matthew Stafford at Cincinnati, Super Bowl rematch. He's got it. Jaylen Warren against the Raiders. This is the week that he takes over from Najee. And Nico Collins at the Jaguars. He had a huge week last week. I expect CJ Stroud to continue to throw the ball a lot this week. They're going to be down. Divisional matchup. I like Nico Collins the most out of any Houston Texan. So those are your three names.
Yeah, I would love for the Jaylen Warren thing to be real. And Nico, though, has been sneaky good early in the year, and they're just going to be chucking the ball every week. So let's go now to the busts. We'll start with you, Jesse.
All right, my bust of the week. Number one, Deshaun Watson versus the Titans. He looked horrible versus the Steelers. Titans defense is very good. Mike Vrabel is going to put on a coaching masterclass against this messed up Browns team. No Nick Chubb. It's going to put more pressure on Deshaun Watson. He's going to make more mistakes. Not a good week to have him as your quarterback. Running back, James Conner has looked great this season. I really like him as an RB2 still going forward. Never start a running back against Dallas this entire season. Just don't do it. You'll probably win your championship if you just don't start anybody versus Dallas. And then the last one is Mike Evans versus the Eagles. I just think that it's pretty hard for him to live up to the hype that he had from last week in that huge game. And he's going against the Eagles, Darius Slay, James Bradbury. They're not going to give them the big play. I expect the Bucs to lose this game, drop to 2-1. But yeah, Mike Evans, you still probably have to start him for the upside, unless you have like a God squad. But I don't think he's going to do as well this week.
Yeah, that Philly-Tampa game is going to be so interesting. I just think the train goes off the rails a little bit for the Bucs.
Baker upset?
No, I don't believe so. Although I didn't pick him the first 2 weeks either. Zach, over to you.
All right, at quarterback, I think this is the guy that everyone has on their minds. No clue why he's still ranked as a top 10 fantasy quarterback on Fantasy Pros. It's Justin Fields going into Arrowhead against that Kansas City defense. I mean, need I really say more? Everyone's freaking out about how awful his awareness and his arm has been over the past couple weeks. I'm officially off the Fields train. He's going to do horrible against Kansas City. They're going to eat him alive. Running back, I'm going to go with James Cook against Washington. Washington with a great defensive line. A lot of great players that are going to be against him. That front four, one of the best in the NFL, going against James Cook. Don't think he's going to have a big week. And then finally, for my wide receiver, I'm going with Davante Adams against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's Jimmy Garoppolo against a pretty solid Pittsburgh defense. I like the Pittsburgh defense a little bit more than Jimmy Garoppolo in that matchup. So I don't think Davante Adams, he'll still get the ball, just not as much as you would hope for a wide receiver one. So give me Davante Adams there.
The reason Fields is still ranked in the top 10 is the dude does not score less than 16 points. Like, he just finds a way. He had that late throw against the Bucks. He had the obviously he always has rushing yards.
He's going to run straight into Chris Jones, and Chris Jones is going to pile drive him through the ground. There will be an impact. There will be like an actual impact left on.
And all of Chicago will cheer.
Oh yeah.
Justin Fields. Say what you want about him in real life.
Kansas City and Chicago cheering out in just absolute joy.
He is a fantasy. He hasn't been a stud this year, but he's been so consistent to get you at least.
He is,
somewhere.
Just his rushing upside is just such an incredible baseline that even if he sucks with his arm, he can still get you 14.
This is his last year as the quarterback of the Bears, though. Let's be.
Oh well, I don't want him in a dynasty league. I don't want anything to do with him.
Drop him in dynasty.
In redraft, yeah.
You can't drop him, but yeah. All right, over to you, Jack. Busts of the week.
All right, quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. He's been so good to start the year, but I just think a Denver defense that is better than people give them credit for. I think it's going to be one of the more difficult matchups. Although I will say I do think both of your guys' picks at quarterback were better bust picks than mine. This was my third option. My running back is going to be Josh Jacobs against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think he's going to have a great week. He was really bad last week. He plays another tough defense this week. I can't imagine he's possibly as bad as he was last week, but I don't think this is the bounce back yet. It will come, though. My wide receiver, Deebo Samuel, against the New York Giants. It's a good matchup on paper, but Deebo is a guy that, in the Niners offense, that it's not going to be the same guy every week. Like I always say, it's Ayuk 1 week, Deebo 1 week, Kittle 1 week. There's never any consistency. Last week was Deebo's week. It's not going to be this week.
Tua did have a rough week last week. He did not have a great stat line or fantasy because I was chasing some points against somebody and Tua kind of crapped the bed for them. So over to you, Jess.
All right, to close us out for today, I have a surprise game for us to play. So I don't know if you guys have heard of this connections game going around the way, but can I make this look better for us? Whatever, that'll work. Okay, so there are 16 names here, and there are 4 categories in which four of these names. Oh, I'm getting echo. Oh, wait. In which 4 of these names reside. So 4 categories. 4 names in each one, and we have to decipher what those categories are and who fits in each one. Should be pretty easy, though.
Well, I see 4 kickers off of the bat, so those 4 have to be together, right?
Probably.
You might think.
Justin Tucker, Younghoe Koo, Vinatieri, and Stephen Gostkowski.
Bang!
Kickers.
All right, there's one.
So one that I immediately noticed. The problem is there's 5 of these that could work. Is Mahomes, Juju, Montana, Kelsey, Pacheco are all Chiefs.
And you have Travis Kelce.
And Travis, I mentioned Kelsey. And Eric Fisher's there. Eric Fisher's there as well.
Are any of them? Do they have 4 current?
Wait.
Pacheco, Mahomes.
I got one. I think I got one, but I only see 3 so far. Garrett, Fisher, and Kyler were all number 1 picks. Where's the 4th number 1 pick?
Clowney.
Oh,
Clowney. So
Clowney.
4 of them are number 1 overall picks.
Nice.
Bang.
Yeah.
Let's go. Nice. All right.
Hall of Famers.
So,
Namath, Montana, Manning. Aikman.
No, there's not a.
No, there's a
Oh,
fourth.
Aikman.
Name is Yeah. Okay.
And then it's just
Hey,
last year's
bang.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, bang.
Wow. Won a Super Bowl with the
Super Bowl
Chiefs.
Wow.
There we go.
That's cool.
Wow.
Lightweight.
Easy peasy.
Lightweight.
Well,
Easy.
that's the only one we have for today, but maybe we'll come up with some harder ones for next week. That was by Afi, for anybody who's wondering. He made that.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Afi.
He made that?
Apparently, he made that.
Impressive.
No, he didn't make that.
I'm surprised he knew who Steven Gostkowski was.
He didn't. He
There's
just probably
no
picked
way.
categories.
There's
and
no
threw it.
He just Googled kickers, like NFL kickers.
NFL kickers. Who are the NFL's kickers? Oh man.
All right.
That's
Yeah,
so
that's if you know a kicker. I like this game, though. Maybe we'll try to come up with some tricks.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Well, that'll take us to Thursday night football. And that's a wrap for this week's Pass the Rock. Any last words, Brian?
Who dat? 3-0.
Go Eagles.
Hooday.
Here we go, baby. I wish I had my.